Hello, Crystal Palace. I swear at my camera. That's terrible. It's shocking. Cameras all over the place this morning. Good morning, Crystal Palace. My name's Galina Rin. I am here. It is the Upper Norwood Library Hub's library lunch. Eleanor will be with us tomorrow. Don't worry. I know you've had me all week. Had a little gothy chick living in a cave somewhere in Crystal Palace. But Eleanor, our regular host, will be back with us very, very soon. Very soon indeed. So today we have a rock star, really. That's all I can say. It's Paul Monaghan. And hello, sir. How are you doing?
I'm
Hello.
doing well, Ren. Thank you. I'm doing very good.
So tell the folks of Crystal Palace, who are you and what you do?
Right. Well, as I said, my name is Paul Monaghan. I'm an actor, stroke singer, stroke bad dancer. I've done a lot of I do mainly West End work, West End theatre work, mainly musicals. Originally, I come from Dublin, over in Ireland, and I came over here in 1991 to do a 6-month contract on the musical Les Miserables. And 6 months has led into 25 years of working. So I never returned, basically. I just stayed here.
Yeah. Um, so was it a big leap for you to leave where you were from? I mean, I obviously I did the same thing, but I didn't have a nice show to come into. I just went to university and then never left, and then never left. How was the transition
Yeah.
for you?
Um, it's okay because initially I really only thought I was coming over for 6 months, as I said, the contract. So at the end of the 6 months, I had intended to come back to Dublin initially, if I remember rightly. But the 6-month contract it was extended to a year, and then that was extended again. So I did 2 years running in Les Miserables at the Palace Theatre in the original production. And the thing about working in this business, in the theatre business, is there isn't as much work available in Ireland, in Dublin. There's very good work, but it just doesn't have a thriving theatre community like London or New York. So basically, this is the place to be. So I decided to stay.
Amazing. So you were in a show before all the things happened. Which show were you in?
Yeah, I was in Mary Poppins at the Prince Edward Theatre. And March 16th, we showed up on the Monday into the theatre and we did our warm up on stage. And we were halfway through our warm up, and our company manager came on stage and said, "Go home. Don't take anything from your rooms. Just get your coat and go. Leave the building." And it was literally that abrupt and that quick, basically, because Boris had made the announcement advising people not to go to the theatre, and then SALT, which is the governing body of the West End theatres, made the decision to close all the theatres. So we literally left the building, just got our coats and walked out, and that was it.
Oh, that's crazy. So, what have you been doing over this period now that you can't be on your big stages?
Um, yeah, what have I been doing? It's except for the first few weeks of isolating, I guess, like everybody, tearing the little bit of hair I have on my head left out, going crazy, sitting at home. Um, Nothing really, just trying to keep myself occupied. I do some, write some. I don't write my own music, but I arrange music, so I keep busy doing that. And I also do some sketching, pencil sketching. So I got back to doing that. Um, and then just having some, I've been teaching online as well. Obviously, Zoom has really been a godsend to us because it just meant I've been able to do some classes online, and keep up with my students. So I've been keeping myself pretty occupied, um, and going to, doing my gym and doing my exercise and so on. I just miss the theatre. I really miss going in. I miss my evenings. I miss my cast and my crew, very much so. So there's a huge void at the moment. In my just in my normal day life.
Yeah, so we're talking. We've had agents on, and we've had theatre directors and stuff like that on the show, and we were
Yeah.
talking about how perhaps this period of I don't know what what COVID basically, but this period.
I suppose you could call
Sorry.
it sort of, you could maybe call it like forced hibernation.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
I'm looking at.
So I heard a radio
Yeah.
for program about the Japanese Olympics. Basically, this is where this question comes from, right? So the Olympics was due this year. Japan have put them off till next year, and basically what they're doing is they're just looking at every single operational part of how the Olympics is put together, and working out what they don't need anymore. So they're just having like a cutting phase, and a lot of the time it's like it's not the athletes that will miss out. It'll be the officials won't have a full channel thing on their hotel. You know, all of these things that were just hereditarily handed down from one games to the next. Do you think there'll be any changes that would automatically come now that the theaters have had this breathing period? I mean, do you think that there'll be a budget restraint on stuff going forward, or was there space for old legacy
Um,
stuff to be removed?
I, it's there are plans at the moment. There is a new I can't say very much about it, but there is a new West End provisionary kind of contract being negotiated and drawn up for theatres to reopen at some stage next year. Um, the the thing is, the viability of opening the theatres, the bigger theatres with the commercial shows like a show of our size, is the cost, the weekly running costs, and how much revenue they need to take in ticket sales. So, for example, our show needs to take in about 70% overall, in ticket sales for it to pay its way. Um, as long as social distancing remains, um, the major West End theatres will not be able to open, because they would only be able to open a 1,200 seat theatre would only be able to open with, I think, a maximum of about 300 people. Financially, it's just not viable for them to open. So until the restrictions, the social distancing restrictions, are lifted or a vaccine is found, we really won't be able to open. At the moment, we're looking at a prospective date in March of next year of reopening. But again, that all depends on what the government guidelines are at the time, and how COVID is at that particular time. It could be later in the year. They will be bringing in. They do have plans, certain plans for maybe reduced performances. So normally we do 8 a week, but to try and get back to the levels of attendance that we had in 2019 is probably realistically going to take about a year, because you have to understand that the theatre bookings rely an awful lot on advance bookings and tourism.
Tourism,
So
yeah.
we have to the theatre industry has to regrow that booking and has to regrow its audiences, and they don't really expect to be able to say at the moment do 8 performances a week to a good capacity house for about a year. Again, it's about getting, instilling confidence in people to come back to the theatre as well, to form the audiences. So there's a lot of obstacles to overcome with reopening the show. But at the moment, I think that the plan is to go ahead, reopen in March, but not necessarily with 8 shows, possibly 5 shows a week rather than 8.
Okay, so we've been also talking about doing auditions, because we had a theatre director, and we did have our agent talk. I wonder if there are tips that you could give for people who are looking to audition for these shows. So we've got a lot of people retraining themselves at the moment, and I think some of my friends, for example, have come
Yeah.
out of technical industries and have gone to college to learn artistic industries, because they think this is a nice time, 2 years of not doing anything. Why don't we go and study now, so that we can, when we come out, when all this is over. So is what are your tips for auditioning for these kind of shows, perhaps? Is there
Just to be well prepared for the audition, it depends on the show you're going for. try and pick, if you are, whatever show you're going for, try and pick something musically, or if you're asked to read something that is in the similar vein of the show. Really know your stuff though when you go into the audition. Enjoy it is the most important thing. Try and enjoy an audition. You do feel like you're being judged, and you're made basically on trial, but you're not. All they're looking at is if you get into the audition, they know you can do it. They know you have the ability. All they're doing is checking whether you are the right person for the job. So it's nothing to do with ability when you go in for the auditions. You need to get that out of your head. And just prepare your material really well. Sometimes on the recall auditions, for example, they'll send you out material. Just make sure you've learned the material. At the moment with COVID, there's very little person-to-person auditions. So a lot of auditions now are being taped and sent in on reels. But they're starting to get back to person-to-person auditions. So I just say very simply is just make sure you prepare your material really well and enjoy it. Try and enjoy the audition, because remember, they're not there to be judgmental. As I said, they want you to be good because they want you for the job. It's just a matter of whether you are suitable, if you're the right person for it.
That's cool. So Daniel was the person who gave us had brought you on the show. So thanks to Daniel for filling up our last 2 weeks full of rock stars. So he told me I was to ask you about your relationship with a very famous film star.
Oh, did he?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Yeah, my nephew. Yeah, it's okay. No, my nephew, also my godson. Yeah, my older sister's boy. He's not a boy anymore, of course. He's a grown man. Is the movie star Colin Farrell, Irish guy. So I mean, what can I say about him? He's got a great career. He's an A-lister, but to me, he's just my nephew. Mm-hmm. And that's never changed. I love seeing him, working, and I love seeing things he's in. But at the end of the day, he's my nephew primarily, and an actor second.
That's cool. So is your whole family filled with famous people? Because you're not famous yourself. So is it just for something that runs in the family?
Well, thank you. No, strange enough, it's only myself and I mean, I'm Irish and I come from a fairly big family. There were 6 of us, and I've lots of nieces and nephews and things. But the only one of my nieces has gone has got the bug. Let's say she's training. But other than Colin and myself, nobody really went into the business, got the bug. And Colin kind of went into it a little bit late, whereas I've been doing it since I was like 8 or 9. Colin didn't go in till he was about 19 or 20, which was quite late for going into the kind of, or to start off in the kind of TV stuff he wanted to do. But then his career just took off, I'd have to say, so did mine when I came over here. That's why, as I said, I started thinking I'd be in London for 6 months, and here I am 25 years later, still here and still working, thankfully.
So you have a big poster behind you. Were you in Cats as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I guess. Yeah. I was in the revival of Cats at the London Palladium 5 years ago. We came in, and I was out on tour with it, and Andrew Lloyd Webber and the original director Trevor Nunn came to see us while we were on tour, and they thought, hey, it's about time for a revival. So they brought us into the London Palladium, and we played the Palladium for 3 months. Sorry, not 3 weeks. Initially 3 months, and they brought in Nicole Scherzinger to play the lead, to play Grisabella. And we did that, and then it did so well there that they brought it up to Blackpool, and we did 8 weeks in Blackpool. And then we came back again that year to the Palladium for another 3 months. So yeah, it was really good because it was the first major revival, and we had all the original production team. The original director Andrew wrote new songs. I had a new song in it, and which he wrote, and then it was lovely to work with the original choreographer, Dame Gilly Lynn, who sadly passed a couple of years ago. So it was the last thing she did basically. So, but it was a lovely show to do, and to be involved with all the original creative team was fabulous.
And we have a comment from the floor from Kit who says, Paul, you were brilliant in Cats. There you go.
Oh, thank you very much. There you go. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played Gus, theatre cat. And
The Cats is
that's nice. Thank you very much.
The Cats is the one musical that I saw as a child. I think I would have seen the original, I guess, in the 80s, sometime in the late 80s, early 90s. I saw Cats with my mum. It was great.
Yeah.
It was great. Have you watched
Yeah.
this film, this new film that they did of Cats? Have you seen that?
Yes, I watched it, and I have a lot of friends in it, and that's all I'll say about it.
I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, yeah, I didn't think it was that bad. It's
I'm
an
not saying good.
imaginary.
I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent. I just say I saw it, and I had a lot of friends in it, and they're my comments on the movie.
Amazing. So you mentioned that you have students. Is that right? You have
Yeah.
students. So what kind of things do you teach?
Well, basically, at the moment, I'm teaching here in the Greenwich College for teaching drama, and I'm teaching drama, musical theatre, and I teach singing. So I do that. I teach classes for drama, and I will teach singing for classes and one-to-ones. And basically, all I'm doing, what I'm doing is everything I've learned over the years, I'm trying to pass on to the students. Everything I've learned from working in the West End.
Am I right to thinking that you don't take private clients? It's all clients, tutors, people. It's just within the university or college.
I guess I do, but no, I do take. I take private. I do take private one-to-one students, but in the current climate, I'm not, obviously, because of COVID. That's, and I have a couple of I maybe have half a dozen of students that I've been teaching for a couple of years, and I've kept them on just do kind of Zoom classes with them. But it's really difficult. It is a godsend to have the Zoom, but it's really difficult not to have a class, not to have an in-person class. There's an awful lot you cannot do. There's an awful lot that is restrictive about Zoom, but I can still teach a class. So I guess until the COVID situation really is gets a lot better, I won't be doing one-to-one person classes.
Well, it feels like that you've got a lot on anyway. You seem quite busy with everything.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's only because it's just because the colleges reopened and the schools reopened, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I have to say that, like, the Greenwich College, all the safety precautions and they put in are fantastic, and the students are fabulous as well about adhering, thankfully, to all the recommendations and all the safety things they need to do. So it is a very safe environment. That's what I'm saying at the moment. I feel I was a little bit anxious and a little bit nervous about going into a classroom with teaching kids, but or students, not kids. But all the safety measures that are put in place are very reassuring. The class sizes are smaller, obviously, and they all have their own area where they just stay in that area in the room. So everybody is socially distant, and there are masks and screens and things. So, and sanitizers everywhere, So it's pretty good. It's just, and it's, to be honest, it's just nice to be back working, because the theatre industry has just been completely decimated with this, and left out to hang and dry, So when I say we may be back in March, I have no idea, and even our management company cannot say for certain. That's the date they're working to. And I think what people don't realize is for the theatres to reopen, it's not a case of just opening the doors like you would say a shop or something. They're going to have to do a kind of pre-production and pre-planning period of about 4 months. So ideally, if they're opening in March, they need to know in December that we can open in March. And it's just not happening, so.
There's a lot, I've seen a lot of stuff on Facebook today and yesterday about the government's stance on the arts not being a relevant job. Do you have any thoughts on that at all?
Um,
People should
well,
retrain in
it
out of the
depends on
arts.
what you mean. It depends on the definition of relevant, and it depends on whether you take anything in this government's word seriously, which I don't. I'm not very political, but they really have when it comes to theatre and it comes to the arts, they have no idea. They have no clue, absolutely no clue what's going on, and mishandling it really, really badly. And they are killing one of the major industries in this country. Um, the West End alone, the theatre, the ticket sales alone in 1 year, just in West End theatre and just on ticket sales, is almost £800 million a year. Take on top of that then the merchandise, take on top of that restaurants, take on top of that tourism like hotels. You're talking about £5 billion a year. The West End alone generates in revenue. I think that's pretty viable. Pretty
Yeah,
viable.
yeah. I because I'm from the music background, so we've already lost pretty much every large music venue in central London due to the
Yeah,
regeneration. Like we've got 100. The 100 Club is probably the only one I can think of that's like still been there from forever
yeah,
and in the center. So the theaters are the main draw to town center, city center, really, unless you work in a courthouse or something. Um,
yeah. Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That I mean that it just shows you how ridiculous it is that they're now thinking of turning theaters into courthouses. It's like it just beggars belief,
I
honestly.
did not know that that was a thing that they were thinking of. I used to work in a courthouse in central
Yeah.
London. That's why I said that. I didn't know they were thinking of
No,
changing.
that's the latest thinking. That is the latest thinking for because because now they're marshalling the restrictions. They're anticipating that there might be a lot of court cases, but we don't have enough courts. So they thought, we'll use the theaters. Well, why not? Yeah.
Well, I guess if they have to go into major social distancing, like the courts aren't made for being that. Some courts are quite small. They are quite tiny,
Yeah.
and if you need,
Well, at least,
four
at
people in a
least,
box
well,
or something.
all I can say is at least the theaters will have some sort of drama in them. Well, there you go.
Yeah, they also get revenue for that though, because the government would have to pay the theaters for. They can't just martial law themselves into "I'm taking over your theater," and then
No,
the theater would get some money
yeah,
from that,
but
right?
it is, it's reconciling again. It's just taking away. It's slowly chipping away at our industry. I think that's my point with it. It's fine, of course, turn it, if it's a temporary thing, but there are other buildings there that they can take. There are other premises they could use, um, and theaters as a courthouse, but I can't see it really myself. I don't see where they see that, the logistics in it. But you know, again, as I say, they're not thinking about the proper use for the theatres and how they can get us back up and running. There's been no measures, there's been no guidance at whatsoever, no guidance coming out. And they did they put forward this 1.57 billion rescue deal about 3 months ago. I think it was 2 or 3 months ago. Nobody knows where the money is going yet. They haven't designated where the money is going to, smaller venues or what venues yet. So, my thing is, the way I think of it is, if they're going to announce that they're going to give out that money, they should surely, before they announce it, know where they're going to give it. But typical, they haven't, so we're still waiting to know where the money will go, this rescue package. But,
Yeah. Seen that there are three hashtags involved. One is let the music play, the other one is we make events, and there's a
yeah.
theater one, and I don't remember what that is. Is it like we make theaters, or do you know what that one is?
Uh, 1 minute.
Well, while you're looking that
One
up,
minute.
while you're looking that up,
Yeah, 1 minute.
so we know that they've put them, we've put them these three hashtags and these three groups are going to come together and protest against these losses, because what the theaters lose, the music lose as well. I'm just telling the folks at home really about these three campaigns. So one is for people who make conferences and the production side and do all the events like Trafalgar Square events, stuff like that. And then you've got the music guys and then the theatre guys. And they're all going to come together and do protests together. They had one the other day, didn't they, where they turned everything red. Were you part of that, Paul?
No, what they did, I mean, a couple of weeks, well, it's a few weeks ago, all the theatres and all the major venues, they lit the buildings up, the exterior and the interior, all over the country in red. But yesterday there was a massive demonstration in front of the Houses of Parliament where hundreds of musicians got together and they played Mars, the opening of the Holst fanfare. They played the first minute and a half because that's all they were allowed to play, because crowds might gather, which is fine.
Oh, yeah.
So as a demonstration, I think it was about it's online. You can see it on YouTube and it's on Facebook. Fantastic. Just 300 or 400 musicians filling the whole green in front of the Houses of Parliament playing.
I did not know
So
that.
the third one you're talking about
Yeah.
is this one. The show must go on. This one.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
There you go. That's what I was running for, my mask. Yeah, and I mean, that's, typical. They're selling the masks is just to raise funds to put into the various benevolent funds that are there to help not just the actors, but the technical people and the musicians. People seem to forget theatre is not just about, employment-wise, it's not just about actors. It's about all the backstage staff, the crew, the wig people, the makeup people, the orchestra, the front of house people, then the people who make the tickets, the people who make the programs, the people who make the wigs, the people who make it goes on and on the list, the infrastructure of theatre. So, it affects a lot of industries, directly or indirectly.
Yeah, amazing. I have just tagged in all those hashtags into the chat if you would like to get involved with any of the protests. As I say, the three hashtags, the show must go on is the theatre one, let the music play is the music venue one, and Music Venue Alliance has done a lot of that for grassroots music venues. And We Make Events is all the production companies and folks who maybe do things, any kind of event actually, any kind of event production, from festivals to stuff, to conferences, to the whole thing. So if you want to follow any of those, the hashtags are there. Just get on Twitter, just go on Instagram, whatever, and you'll see loads of protest stuff going on. Well, thank you very much, Paul, for joining us. This was actually very, very illuminating for all the stuff that you were telling us, dropping nuggets of knowledge all over the place. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Absolutely.
We've run right out of time. We could have been here all afternoon, I'll be honest. Once we got into the protest, let's protest everything. Woohoo! Love it. I'm just gonna tell the folks at home that we've got loads of activities for Halloween and for children and all sorts of things over on our website. Just run over to the website. I'm gonna drop it in the old comments there. We've got Halloween show with Daniel and West End musical singers on the 31st of October at 6 p.m. It will be on this channel. It is free, but we would like you to donate. It's free, but we do need you to donate. Yeah, it is. Yeah, amazing. All right, I'm gone for now. Eleanor will be here tomorrow. Thank you very much, Paul, for joining us. It was so nice to have you on. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And we will see you all tomorrow. All right, bye-bye.